God damn, here I am again. Back at it, man. Back at it, making these YouTube videos outside. Here we are. Here we are, guys. Back at it again. You know me, Halal Dunya. Here we are, guys. Back at it, guys, outside here. As you can see in the background, there's all these cars going by and all that shit. Pretty typical day for me. Don't want to keep talking about this, so let's get on to the topic at hand, guys. The topic at hand, guys, is this is the topic of this video, guys, is going to be about consciousness, guys. That's what I'm going to be talking about. Freaking consciousness, man. Gotta be talking about consciousness, man, I swear. Because it is such an important aspect of our lives, the conscious experience, you know what I mean? Gotta be talking about consciousness, man. This is gonna be so interesting. There is no proper explanation for why us... There is no proper explanation for why us human beings, why we have a consciousness, and why other, maybe perhaps most likely other living creatures as well, like dogs, cats, most like organisms that have like an advanced nervous system, why they have a consciousness. There is no proper explanation on this, guys. It's always just assumed that it's just kind of natural for us to develop a consciousness. It's kind of bizarre. If you actually if you think about this so carefully, if you think about why is it that we're conscious and alive, it's so weird. It's so weird, man, I swear. If you actually start to like dig into it a little bit, if you think about it, why is it that we're conscious? Why do we have like these like experience, like this type of conscious experience? There is no proper scientific explanation for it at all. If you actually think about this so carefully, there is like literally no proper scientific explanation for like the origin of consciousness. The scientists, they can tell you that we, like the evolution theory, we evolved from like lesser creatures and organisms and bits of things, and we became human beings. But when did consciousness start to emerge? That's so like paradoxical to me. How did consciousness develop, and where exactly did it emerge from? That's so paradoxical, yo. There is no proper legit explanation on this, guys. The origin of like consciousness, these like the fact that we have like a conscious experience, there is no proper explanation for this. It's so like bizarre to think about this, that we are conscious and alive, but there's no like proper explanation for consciousness. Why is it that we have our bodies aren't just like freaking like soulless, you know what I mean? They're not just like mechanical objects. That would make more sense, wouldn't it, that we are like soulless and we're just like mechanical objects moving around. But for whatever reason, we have like some type of weird conscious experience that's like it's so like, it can't be really logically rationalized or explained at all. The conscious experience, guys, where the hell does that come from? So many scientists, they try and answer this type of, these sorts of like deep philosophical questions, like the origin of consciousness. Why is it that we came into existence to begin with? What's the meaning of life? All these like deep philosophical questions. But I think really these like questions, especially how it relates to like consciousness. Look at this, guys. Most YouTubers, they just sit in their houses. I legit, guys, you gotta give me some credit. Yo, guys, look, I go outside, like, look, in this fucking this area here, and look at the background. I legit like live near roadways. I make videos like on traffic roadways, man. Yo, what other YouTuber does that? Yo, not a lot of YouTubers do that. They don't have the balls, man, to go outside and make videos like this. You know me, I do, guys. Yo, legit, I can literally like go outside right now and make videos here in the wild, even with all the attention on me, and I don't really feel any type of shame. Legit, like, what other type of YouTuber does that? Most YouTubers just chill at home, make their shitty YouTube videos in their shitty rooms. They show you their shitty like PS5s and whatever, and their shitty like tech and desktop tours. And I don't want to get too much into that, but look, guys, I'm outside here in the park, guys, and that's how I make my videos, in the fresh air. Legit though, the topic of this video, yo guys, is the topic of this video is going to be about like freaking consciousness. Where the hell does that come from? What is like the origin of consciousness? There is no proper explanation. If you think about it so deeply, why is it that we developed consciousness to begin with? It's so weird. The scientists, they can't really explain it. They all they can offer you is the explanations about the fact that we developed from like lesser creatures and organisms and evolution over 1 billion years, and here we are. But where the hell does consciousness come from in all of this? You know what I mean? Consciousness, guys. Yo, think about that consciousness. That is so mad, you know. How can you explain that in a proper way? Like the origin of consciousness, where did it actually originate from? Most people don't really think about it too carefully, do they? Like legit consciousness, where does that actually originate from? Regarding like our history and our development, at what point regarding like our ancestors? If you believe in the theory of evolution, you know, like the fish creatures, blah blah blah, there's like a gradual development of like organisms, and then they became our ancestors, then we became humans. At what stage in our like evolution did consciousness start to develop? That's so interesting. If you're like a scientist, that would be so interesting to like kind of study and research about. But anyway, consciousness is so paradoxical. Just gotta make sure no one's gonna try and rape me. Anyway, yo, but consciousness is so paradoxical. This whole like feeling and experience of like life, and we have like these like memories inside of our heads and all of that type of stuff. There's no legit proper explanation for it at all. Consciousness cannot be at all rationalized in a proper scientific way. It's so dubious. If you're a scientist, how could you possibly kind of explain consciousness? Maybe some scientists say it's just like a consequence of like the evolution of our brains, and our brains, the neural firings, the neural structures, and etc. Still, it's so bizarre. Why? But even then, like, why is it that our brains produce consciousness to begin with? Why is it that the neurons produce consciousness? Why can't it be like the muscles in our hands that produce consciousness? Why is it that trees and inorganic forms of life, like not forms of life, but inorganic stuff like rocks and like volcanoes, why is consciousness only specific for us, for creatures that have like nervous systems? See, all these like deep questions, the scientists, they can't answer it. It's so dubious, and I swear it's so dubious, man. The scientists, they can't answer it, man. It's like so dubious, like you can't really possibly even like try and explain this, man. I swear. The origin of like consciousness, where does it originate from? How did it start to develop in our ancestry, in our history, in the past? There is no clear-cut answer for any of this, guys. It's so bizarre. Most people, they tell you that it's just because blah 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 blah. It's just because of the way our ancestors were developing and the neurons were firing, and we started to become more sophisticated, and here we are now. That is so like horrible. That's like a horrible explanation. What is the actual explanation for our consciousness? Does anyone know? Do you know about this? Whoever you are that's watching this video, leave it in the comment section. What is like the legit explanation for consciousness? I don't know personally at all. It's such a mystery, consciousness. This world is so weird. Why is it that we are like conscious and alive? Do you think that's, if you think about it, it's so bizarre. Because at some point before you were born, you were pretty much like not even like conscious and aware, and then you became conscious, and it's such a bizarre thing. What is like the legit proper explanation for our consciousness? Do you know about this? Because it's so bizarre to think about it. If you do think about it, it all kind of like unfolds, you know what I mean? This whole reality becomes so like weird and whimsical once you start to think about these deep ass philosophical questions. If you think about them a lot, this whole world starts to like unravel. It's almost like it becomes so whimsical. I don't know how to explain it. It becomes so magically weird. Almost just legit. It is like magic, isn't it? Yo, if you think about this type of question, like the origin of consciousness and all these other sorts of things, where does it originate from? Why did us human beings, we develop like consciousness? Why is it that we weren't just like brain dead automatons, biological like machines? Why is it that we weren't like mechanical objects just moving around? We developed some sort of like conscious experience, and that is so dubious and tricky, man. Where does that come from? That's so bizarre. Legit, the scientists, they can't even freaking answer any of these types of deep questions, you know what I mean? Most scientists evolution and science and blah blah blah, but they don't even talk about the fact that like consciousness, how can you possibly even attempt to explain consciousness regarding like the theory of evolution? Why did we evolve to have like a conscious experience? Wouldn't it be counterproductive? Why weren't we just evolving as like biological automatons? When did consciousness start to develop? Is it when our nervous systems became more sophisticated? It's so bizarre, man. Why is it that other creature, like why can't rocks be conscious? You know what I mean? Why is it that we need, like, us human beings, we need to be like, it's something that you need like a brain to be conscious. It's all these like weird questions. Why can't consciousness just be like immaterial? It can like occupy any type of like structure. It doesn't just have to originate from the nervous system. These types of questions are so weird, man. It's so bizarre to think about these types of questions. The origin of like consciousness and all that, and all these other deep philosophical questions, man. Where does consciousness come from? Why are we conscious and alive? The scientists, they tell you evolution and all that type of stuff. Evolution, really, evolution only explains like the development of our bodies. It doesn't explain the development of our consciousness. Does that make sense? Like our psychology, maybe it may be psychology a little bit, but it doesn't really explain the conscious part of us. How can, if you're like an evolutionary biologist, how do you like square this circle? You know what I mean? How do you explain this, that we have conscious like thoughts, but we also like, we're conscious and aware and stuff like that, but we have like physical bodies, and we're like a physical object. Just like, if you think about it just purely in terms of like atoms, you got a rock and then you got us human beings. We're pretty much on the same level, you know what I mean? You got a rock and then you got us. If you think about it in terms of just purely atoms, we're just like atoms, you know what I mean? But why is it that we, us human beings, we have like a consciousness in our brain and a rock doesn't, you know what I mean? But but we're still just both like lumps of atoms. That's so bizarre to me, man. It's so freaking bizarre. There's no like legit proper explanation for it at all. If you think about it in just purely in terms of like atoms, like us human beings, we're like atoms, and a rock is like an atom, a pile of atoms. We're just both piles of atoms. But why is it that a rock doesn't have a consciousness, but we do as human beings? That's so bizarre. Even though we're both like, if you think about it in like a very simplistic way, we're just like lumps of atoms, but a rock doesn't have a conscious experience, but we do. That's so bizarre. And there's no like legit, what would be the actual proper explanation for it? The development of like consciousness, the explanation for consciousness, the origin of like consciousness. Why do we specifically have a consciousness, and why do like rocks and other inanimate objects, they lack a consciousness? What's the actual explanation on this? It's so bizarre once you start to think about it. All these like deep ass philosophical questions, once you start to ponder on them, your whole world starts to like unravel. Everything starts to become more mystical and whimsical, you know what I mean? Obviously there's still like a common sense approach to all of this, you know what I mean? Consciousness and like and our development and why we exist. Some scientists would say it's just evolution, man. It's just how we developed and all that stuff. It's evolution. It's like abiogenesis, science stuff that's been happening in the past, and that's now why we're here. But there's so many like questions that are still unanswered by science. Consciousness is like the biggest one. Why does consciousness even like exist to begin with? Why is it that we aren't just like completely mechanical, soulless objects that just operate off like our genetic code? Why do we have like this weird first-hand experience of the world? It's so bizarre. These deep-ass philosophical questions, if you think about them so carefully, your whole world starts to like unravel around you. You start to like, everything just starts to like change, you know what I mean? It's so weird that if you think about these like deep-ass philosophical questions, you can't really answer these questions, you know what I mean? They can't be answered for. So bizarre, man. These like questions about like life and our consciousness and everything like that is so difficult to answer these sorts of questions. But I don't know, some people try and answer these questions, but these like, there's like a lot of religious explanations, like God made us and he gave us a consciousness. Some people think like that. To me, like these types of like religious explanations are very dubious as well. There really is no like clear cut explanation for why we have a conscious experience. It's kind of bizarre. It's that we are conscious and we are alive and blah 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 blah, but there's no proper explanation for why that is, that we are like conscious and aware of our world and all that type of stuff. This first-hand experience is so bizarre, man. What's like the explanation for like this like weird first-hand experience of consciousness, man? I honestly can't even like properly explain it, man. No scientist can explain it, you know what I mean? this like first-hand view of the world. Where does it come from? The consciousness, the conscious experience, man. Where does it actually originate from? It's so bizarre once you think about it. Once you actually start to carefully think about this, it will blow your mind. Everything will start to unravel. Where does it all come from? The conscious experience, this first-hand like view of the world and everything like that. It's so wild once you think about it. Once you start to think about it. Once you start to think about these types of deep-ass philosophical questions, your whole world starts to unravel around you, man. Everything becomes so much more whimsical and magical. Think about it so carefully. This first-hand experience that you're having right now, where does it come from? Why is it here? Why aren't you just like brain dead and like completely like immobilized? It's so weird, man. Where the hell does it come from? You know what I mean? This like first-hand. You see out of your eyes, you have like this first-hand experience. Where does it originate from? I don't think the scientists, they can't even offer you the correct explanation. No, I don't think anyone can offer the correct explanation, you know what I mean? It's so weird, man, you know what I mean? Where does it come from, this like first-hand kind of like view of the world, this viewpoint that we all have? Where does it originate from, man? You know what I mean? It's so bizarre. It is so wild and insane, and there's no proper explanation at all. It's so insane, man, I swear. This first-hand experience that we all have, where does it originate from? What is the true origin of consciousness? The scientists, they can't tell you anything about it, man. All they can do is they can say evolution and science and all that type of shit, but they can't properly answer these like deep philosophical questions, like the origin of like consciousness, why we start to become alive and aware. These like questions are so dubious. There's no clear-cut answer to these questions, man. Where the hell does it come from, you know what I mean? Where the hell do these types of like this like first-hand experience, where does it come from? Why are we aware? Why are we conscious? Why are we alive? It's all a mystery, isn't it? Innit? Is it a mystery, guys? Isn't it a mystery? Yo, whoever's watching this video, it's a mystery, right? The conscious experience, why is it here? Why do we have like these feelings and emotions? All of that is so bizarre. It can't be answered for at all. Where does it come from? Why is it here? Why do we have this like weird viewpoint of the world where we all have like this like certain like personal like experience? We all like see the world in a certain way, and that's so weird. Can't really be answered for, man, I swear. We all have like this certain interpretation of the world, this viewpoint. We all see things through our eyes and in this type of lens, and it's like we interpret everything around us in a certain way. That is so bizarre. Why is it here? Why do we have a certain type of like interpretation of the world? That is so bizarre, isn't it? That's so bizarre, man. That we have like a first-hand interpretation of this world. We have like this certain viewpoint. We're like looking around. Don't you think that's so bizarre? You know what I mean? What is like the proper explanation of consciousness? What can it be? You know what I mean? The scientists, they'll tell you that it's all just about how we evolved and all that type of stuff. That's so dumb to me, man. How can that be like a proper, legit explanation? Is this because of evolution and whatever? I don't know. And rocks. Why is it that? Because if you think about it in a simplistic way, we're just like lumps of atoms ourselves, and a rock is like a lump of atoms. Why is it that we have a consciousness and a rock doesn't? Isn't that kind of weird? Some scientists, they'll tell you that it's because we have like nervous tissue and stuff, and like muscles in our brain and stuff, and the neurons firing. Yeah, but why? Just take a step back. Why is that? Why should that produce consciousness? Why can't consciousness emerge from a rock? You know what I mean? It's all these like deep questions, man. These deep questions. It's so weird. It's hard to answer it as well. Answer these types of deep philosophical questions. Consciousness, whatever you want to call it. We have it. But what's the explanation? Why do we have like this like you know, like this weird like experience? We're all like, so you should, you know what I'm saying, right? Seeing the world, you have like, you can feel and experience things, you have like emotions and like this chemistry in your brain. What's going on with that? Why is that the case? Where does consciousness is such a, it's so paradoxical, enigmatic. There's no proper explanation at all for consciousness. Where does it come from? Why is it here? Why do we have a certain viewpoint of the world? It's so bizarre. It's so bizarre, guys. It's so bizarre. There's no real explanation whatsoever. It's so weird and whimsical, guys. Whoever you are that's watching this video, isn't it weird and whimsical? The conscious, the first-hand experience that we all have, and we see things through our eyes, and we see all this world around us, and we feel things, and we breathe in and out. Where does that come from, really? If you think about it, it's so bizarre. It's going to blow your mind if you start to think and ponder over these like deep philosophical questions. Deep. It's so weird, man. So weird. Think about it so deeply, God. Whoever you are that's watching this video, think about it. So bizarre. There's no proper explanation. What's the origin of consciousness? Where does it originate from? Where does it come from? You can't really answer for it at all, can you? It's so weird. It's such a weird, whimsical thing. It's like consciousness, conscious experience we all have. Where does it all come from? This viewpoint, this like interpretation of the world that we have, these feelings and emotions. If you don't believe in God or anything like that, you don't believe in any supernatural thing, or you don't believe in any metaphysical stuff or whatever, you're just like a pure materialistic, like atheistic, scientific person, fair enough. But then why is consciousness even real then? Why do we have like this it's almost like a metaphysical like experience that we all have? We're seeing the world in a metaphysical way. But if you're like an atheist or a scientist and you're a materialist, how do you kind of answer for this? You know what I mean? Why do we, if everything's materialistic and mechanical, why do we have like this metaphysical like thing inside of our heads, and we're seeing and interpreting the world around us in like this almost metaphysical way, where we're interpreting this materialistic world using our metaphysical like experience? It's so bizarre. It's so paradoxical, because legit, if you're like a scientific, atheistic, materialistic person, you don't believe in any metaphysical stuff, you think it's all just like nonsense, then where does like this like conscious experience come from in us, you know what I mean? Why do we have like this, like it's almost like a metaphysical, legit, like it's like we have like, it's almost like we're like a separate, there's like something else inside of our heads. We're not even like fully our bodies, we're like a separate part inside of our brains. It's like this like weird conscious experience that's so bizarre. It can't really be answered for at all. It's so bizarre. This conscious experience. Where does it originate from? Where does it come from? If you're like purely scientific, materialistic, atheistic, whatever you want to call it, then what is the explanation here? Why do we have like this almost like metaphysical, supernatural, fantastical like viewpoint of the world? We have like this like experience inside our heads, and we see the world and everything around us in a certain way. What's going on with that? Where does that come from? It's so bizarre. Damn, it's so weird once you think about these like deep questions a lot. If you ponder on them, if you think about it very deeply, it's so bizarre. What the hell, man? Like, where does it come from? You know what I mean? Why do we have like this like freaking weird ass like viewpoint of the world, this interpretation of the world, this like experience of the world? It's like so bizarre, man. Where does it all come from and originate from, man? It's so weird. It's so bizarre, man. Where does it originate from? Damn, it's so bizarre. so bizarre. Where does it all come from? Where does it originate from? Is there a proper explanation? What's going on here, man? Is there a proper explanation, or is it all just like dubious and mysterious? I think most of these deep questions, they're always going to stay like dubious, mysterious. There's never going to be like a clear-cut, very solid explanation for these sorts of questions, you know what I mean? Like, consciousness, where does it originate from? Why is it here? Why do we have like a first-hand like experience of the world? Where does that come from? Why is it that we're not just like completely numb in the brain dead, you know what I mean? Mechanical objects. Why do we have like this first-hand experience of the world? It's so bizarre. Once you think about these sorts of deep questions, once you deeply think about these questions, it's so bizarre. Once you think about these questions very deeply. I'm stepping on my mud. What's the origin of it? Where does it come from? It's so deep to think about these types of deep questions, man. It's so weird once you start to think about it with this viewpoint. You know what I mean? We all have this type of thing inside of us, like this conscious experience. What the hell, man? Where does it come from? It's so bizarre. Where does it come from, yo? It's so bizarre, man, I swear. The conscious experience that we all have right now. You know what I mean? You feel it in you, right, as well. Where is it coming from? Where the hell is it coming from? This like feelings and emotions and like this first-hand viewpoint experience of the world. Where is it all coming from? It's so bizarre. Damn, it's so bizarre, you know what I mean? How can you like even like explain it, you know, like the consciousness, like where the hell would that come from? How would that fit into like evolution and like materialistic science? The scientists can't even freaking tell you about these sorts of things, you know what I mean? They just tell you about my evolution, my Big Bang, my abiogenesis and whatever, and life coming from dead inorganic material, which hasn't even been proven. All these deep ass philosophical questions, you know what I mean? Where the hell, the scientists can't even fucking tell you anything about this, you know what I mean? It's like all empty answers from them. They can't even answer any of these like questions properly, you know, you get me? It's so weird. Damn, these questions are so important though, guys. Whoever you are that's watching this video, think about this so carefully. The origin of consciousness, that's so important to think about, to contemplate on. Where does it come from? Why is it here? Why do we have like this like first-hand viewpoint of the world? This like first-hand, almost like this like, it's like a metaphysical like experience that we have right now. And we're sensing the world around us, we're touching and feeling things, and we're doing all these sorts of things. And we're moving our bodies and we're having like these memories. So glad that bird didn't just shit on my camera, I swear to God, man. I would have made me so angry. There's always like an issue when you film videos outside. You might get bird shit or some other shit on you. So lucky, man. Not a lot of birds above me anyway, but anyway. Damn, I would have been so pissed off if that bird shitted on my camera. Last time when I was outside, I got bird shit on my jacket and I had to wash that shit off, man. That would have been, if I got bird shit on my camera, that would be so, that wouldn't wash off so easily, you know what I mean? Damn, man. But still, it's like the cinematography is so cool, innit? You see this like the life happening around me. It's so nice. The background, it's like an interesting, like, it adds such an interesting atmosphere to these sorts of videos. If I was to just like sit in my house, in my room all day making these sorts of videos, I'd be so like dead, you know what I mean? It wouldn't be as like interesting, you know what I mean? When I'm out here, I'm like showing you everything here and stuff. It's so much more interesting, isn't it? It's like so much more popping in it. It would be more dead if I was like in my house just sitting down and like just recording everything there. By showing you everything out here, it's so much more popping in it. Oh yeah, but legit, yo, you have to think about these sorts of questions, man. These deep ass philosophical questions about consciousness, the origin of life, all these like sorts of questions. How can science even like explain it, you know what I mean? How can science even try and offer an explanation for these sorts of questions? It's so bizarre. How can science even offer an explanation for these sorts of questions, you know what I mean? It's so bizarre to think about it. so bizarre to think about these sorts of deep philosophical questions. What could be the proper explanation? What is the proper, solid, legit explanation? You know what I mean? God damn, it fucks your head, innit? Once you start to think about these like deep ass philosophical questions. The issue with these sorts of questions is there's never going to be a straight, clear-cut answer. You know what I mean? It's always going to be dubious, mysterious, and that's kind of like that's kind of like a part of the beauty of it. You know what I mean? These deep questions can never be answered for, so they're always going to be left like open to interpretation, and that's going to probably inspire a lot of like different sorts of like development in our culture and our understanding of the world. I don't know. Consciousness, where does it come from? Why do we all have like this certain first-hand viewpoint of the world? What the hell could be the explanation here, guys? Or whoever you are is watching this video, think about it so carefully. Where does it come from? Consciousness, these feelings and emotions that we all have, where does it all come from? Where does it originate from? There's no legit, there's the scientists, they can't fucking, all they fucking tell you is that, oh, so all they tell you is that, oh, we just came from fucking monkeys and then we came here after billions of years of evolution, now we're here, and that's about it, and there's nothing else to it. And there is no God, and there's no magical stuff at all. We're just like mechanical objects and machines. We're biological machines made, we're biological machines meant to propagate our own DNA, and there is no God and magical stuff at all. That's what the scientists are telling you, that we're just like basically biological machines. We're biomechanical machines, and we're not really even, we don't really have a soul, and we're not really fully conscious. But if all of that is true, then where does the consciousness come into it, man? You know what I mean? This like metaphysical feeling that we all have inside of us, like this like conscious experience, that is so bewildering, it cannot be answered for. If strictly according to like materialistic science, it cannot answer for this, you know what I mean? This like this metaphysical like viewpoint that we all have, like this type of conscious experience. How the hell can like materialistic science, like these like atheistic scientists, Richard Dawkins, that we're just like biomechanical machines, more or less, we're just meant to propagate our own DNA into like jizz, into like, now I don't want to get too into that, too much like vulgar, but you know what I mean? Like we're just like meant to propagate our DNA. We're biomechanical machines. We're meant to survive and reproduce, and that is like, and we're just like products of evolution, and that is like the whole extent of our existence, and there's nothing more magical than that. If you believe in that, fair enough, then you're probably going to be suicidal. But I mean, to me, it's like, how can you, the consciousness is so, the conscious experience, to me, that kind of does indicate that there has to be some type of higher, at least a higher spiritual like essence in us, you know what I mean? There has to be some sort of like metaphysical part to our existence. It's not just like we're biomechanical machines, we're just meant to propagate our own DNA. Holy shit, if you believe in that, oh man, you're gonna be suicidal, you know what I mean? If you don't think that you have a, you're pretty much saying that you don't even have a soul, that you're just a biomechanical machine. If you truly believe that, you're probably not going to be a very happy person at all. You're probably not going to live a fulfilling life. You're probably going to be super sad and depressed if you think that we're just like biomechanical machines and we don't have any type of metaphysical like essence inside of us like this. Because you think about it, how does consciousness fit into all of this like evolution stuff, the materialistic science stuff, all that type of stuff that these like secularist atheistic people are trying to propagate now? How does like consciousness fit into it? Because it's like, that is like always a big fat issue. Truly, if you think that the world's just like materialistic and whatever, the issue here is that, where does consciousness fit into it, man? How does consciousness fit into it? You know what I mean? Where does that come from? You know what I mean? Consciousness, that's something that's so, it's so paradoxical regarding like materialistic science. Consciousness, where does that come from? You know what I mean? How is that even possible? Especially regarding like materialistic science. Where does consciousness come from? Why is it here with us right now? Where does it originate from? It's so bizarre, man, I swear. There's legit like literally like zero proper explanation on this. Where does consciousness come from? Why is it here? What's going on with the conscious feelings and all that type of stuff? It's so bizarre. Once you actually start to think about these sorts of deep ass philosophical questions, you know what I mean? Where does it all come from, you know what I mean? It's so weird. There's no clear-cut answer to these sorts of questions as well. It's like, if you think about these questions very deeply, you'll start to open your mind up a lot, you know what I mean? Where does it all come from? Why is it around here? It's so bizarre once you start to think about it like that. Once you start to think about these like deep questions, man. If you start to think about these deep questions, it starts to like open your mind up a lot. What's the origin of consciousness? Where does it originate from? Why is it here? It's so weird once you start to think about it. What is like the proper explanation for it as well? It starts to like literally blow your mind once you start to think about it very deeply, you know what I mean? It's so like weird and whimsical, man. Once you start to think about it very deeply, intimately and stuff like that, these questions, the origin of consciousness. If we're just like biomechanical machines, more or less, that's what most materialistic scientific people, that's more or less the belief, right? That we're biomechanical machines, products of evolution. That is like the extent of our existence and stuff like that. It's nothing higher than that. That's so like, that's gonna fuck with your brain, man. So you have to have like some type of higher spiritual like belief, you know what I mean? You have to believe in like something greater, you know what I mean? That's so important as well, that you have that type of like greater like belief system and stuff like that. That you don't just think about like it's all like materialistic or whatever. If you truly believe in that, you're probably gonna be so depressed, I swear down. Probably not gonna be very happy. Not gonna be a happy person at all. I'm telling you 100%, man. You gotta believe in like something more greater. It's so important. That's so important, man. That you have like a higher, you believe in something greater, more profound than just your ordinary existence, this mechanical, physical, materialistic world. You believe in something that's more like esoteric, you know what I mean? Damn, man. Gotta have a greater like belief in something. You gotta believe in something more greater than just like this ordinary like mechanical like materialistic world around you. You gotta think about something more deeper and more profound. God damn, man. Anyway, that's so important. That you don't just believe everything's like physical, materialistic, you know what I mean? You believe in something greater. Consciousness, that's so important to think about. This consciousness, that conscious first-hand experience that we all have. Where does it come from? Why is it even real? If everything was truly just physical, material, everything was like just like atoms made up and like collided together, and there was no like esoteric, there's no mumbo jumbo magical stuff or whatever, there's no like metaphysical stuff, no spiritual stuff, then why are we conscious to begin with? Why aren't we just like soulless mechanical, biomechanical machines made to propagate DNA and whatever? You gotta think about that so deeply, innit? Such an important question, you know what I mean? It's an important question. You gotta deeply think about it and contemplate on it. It's an important question to think about. Such an important question. You cannot ignore it. This question is so super duper important. The conscious experience, where does it come from? Why are we alive? Why are we aware? If it was all material, if the materialistic science was truly correct, if everything was just like purely mechanical, materialistic, etc. and stuff like that, scientific, no God, no magical stuff, no metaphysical stuff, then how can you explain the conscious experience that we all have? How does consciousness fit into all of this, guys? It's kind of a little bit, it's always going to be like, there's never going to be a clear-cut answer or explanation to these sorts of questions about like consciousness and like life and whatever. It's so important that you think about these sorts of questions, though. It's like so like, it legit opens up like something inside of you that's so important. You start to think about things more in a more proper, correct way. Damn, man. It's so important to think about these questions about consciousness, the origin of life and etc. in the universe, the true proper origin, not the supposed official version, but the actual truth that gets hidden away from us by whoever's in charge of the Freemasons, whoever, that they hide these like the true reality away from us. They give us like this like false reality, this false version of this world, that everything's like purely mechanical, this like soulless science, this materialistic science. that God's not real, that everything's like just atoms collided together over cajillions of years, and we're just like biomechanical machines, we're products of evolution, there's nothing more than that to us, and we're just like, we're pretty much worthless, and we might as well just off ourselves, and there's no higher purpose at all. Don't buy into what they're feeding you, guys. You know what I mean? Don't, if you're listening to this, man, you gotta like really take control of your own thinking. Don't just buy into what these like people that are in charge of everything, what they're trying to sell you. It's freaking horrible. Think for yourself a little bit and think about this question so deeply and intimately. Like, where does the consciousness come from? You gotta think about that deeply, innit? Think about it so deeply.